Now, with no end in sight to the political crisis in Myanmar, some members of the Southeast Asia's regional bloc, ASEAN, are raising their voice over the group's no interference policy. Malaysia has said that ASEAN should do some soul searching on its policy of not interfering in members' internal affairs.
The meeting that ASEAN is about 10 member states, as much as the issue in Myanmar is local and national, but it has impact on the region, and we should also recognize the concerns of the other 9 member states. And I also stated the fact that we cannot use the principle of non-interference as a shield to avoid issues being addressed. So I would like to then invite you to perhaps look into the possibility that maybe this is now time for ASEAN to do serious soul searching on the application of the principle of non-interference, and look at other experiences of other regions.
Now, last week, the bloc excluded Myanmar's junta leader Min Aung Hlaing from a leaders' summit. Hlaing has been accused of failing to defuse the crisis, which began with a military coup in February this year. He was excluded after the junta refused to allow an ASEAN special envoy to meet with ousted leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Myanmar then accused ASEAN of violating its decade-old policy of not meddling in domestic affairs of member states. The Southeast Asian bloc has been under international pressure to address the military's brutal crackdown on dissent in Myanmar. Diplomatic sources claim that Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines and Singapore pushed for tough action. Meanwhile, junta has arrested more than 100 anti-coup protesters again. This is according to a local monitoring group that tracks detentions and killings in the country. More than 1,100 people have been killed and over 8,000 have been arrested. Earlier this week, the military released around 5,000 jailed anti-junta protesters. In June, more than 2,000 anti-coup protesters were released. This included journalists critical of the military government. Meanwhile, Suu Kyi remains on trial on a number of charges ranging from sedition to breaching coronavirus restrictions. She faces a long jail term if convicted. Now, we spoke to political analyst Azmi Hassan for more on this. Listen in.
A few months ago, 9 ASEAN members, Myanmar, the junta made a promise that they will make improvement on the situation. But after 3 months, 4 months, nothing happened. And I think especially Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and Indonesia are quite fed up with the Myanmar situation, where they did not keep their promise. So I think this is a very hard decision made by the ASEAN to portray that their unhappiness, the promise that junta made few months ago was not kept. I don't think so. Even the countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Thailand, which are very critical of the junta, I don't think so. It will come to the decision that Myanmar will be expelled. Now, Malaysia was one of the countries that sponsored Myanmar into our membership 12, 13 years ago. But I think it won't come to a situation that Myanmar will be expelled from ASEAN. I think we haven't arrived at that particular juncture as yet.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.